Right, and with David Mowat again, following up from our last interview.
Good afternoon.
David, they always say a week's a long time in politics. I think it's fair to say a day's a long time in politics at the moment.
Well, hopefully we're through it all now, but you're right, we've had a resignation, nomination and a new Prime Minister all fairly quickly, and I think it's good that we've got a new Prime Minister so quickly, and a new Cabinet as well, and next week a new government.
So you think it was right for Cameron to fall on his sword as quickly as he did after Brexit?
I think it was right for him, and I think it was probably right for the country. But yes, I think he had to do that.
And what's your opinion on the new Prime Minister?
Well, I like her. I mean, I wouldn't say I knew her well in the Home Office, or was one of her friends, as it were. But from what I've seen, of what she's done in the cabinet reshuffle, she's made a mark, and it seems pretty positive. Having said that, I mean, she's in a honeymoon period, and I guess she'll be making the most of it. She's got a very hard job to do now, to deliver Brexit.
And do you expect any calls from her yourself personally?
No, I wouldn't say that that would be on top of my agenda, but you never know.
So you'll be there on the back benches with a few familiar faces?
I'll be on the back benches with David Cameron, George Osborne, Michael Gove, and others, yes.
I mean, this has all followed on from the Brexit decision. How surprised were you that we voted as a country to leave?
Well, I stayed up, and I guess many of us will have stayed up to listen to that. And I remember, first of all, the Newcastle or the Sunderland result came in. It was Newcastle, wasn't it? And the BBC were saying, well, either their models are all wrong, or we're going to vote for Brexit. And it turned out that we did vote for Brexit. Before the results came in, I like most people, I thought, if anything, the Remain were going to win reasonably comfortably. So I was surprised and disappointed, but now we need to get on with it.
I mean, Warrington has been described as a Eurosceptic town. I think number 7 in the whole country for being Eurosceptic.
Well, that wasn't borne out by the result. I think it was 53-47 for Warrington, which, you know, for a town in the north of England is not that high a proportion. And in fact, hard to tell, but in my constituency it's probably even narrower. It may even have been 50-50. So it's actually, I don't think that was true. But for the country as a whole, the result is clear. 17 million people voted for Brexit, more than have ever voted for any government. And that is what we now have to implement. And
do you think this will have much impact on places like Warrington? What's going to happen now in the future?
I do, and it's hard to say what and how it'll all work. One thing, you know, and there has been a bit of despondency about it all in terms of what it means, and I think we can overplay all that. And one part of Brexit that will be good for Warrington or the north of England is that our exchange rate has gone down a bit, probably by 10 or 11%. By and large, that favours economies that rely on manufacturing. And I think one of the issues that Britain has had is that we've had an exchange rate that was too high because of the City of London, and it affects manufacturing in the north in a way that's not positive. And at least that part of it is good because it is easy to export, and we haven't got an inflation issue, so not yet anyway. Other than that, it's going to be hard to tell. But the sooner we can get clarity as to what the arrangements are going to be, not only with the EU but with other countries in the world, the better.
Last time we spoke, David, we talked about the devolution deal that was on the table and the opportunity for an elected mayor covering Cheshire and Chester and Warrington. The Labour group on Warrington Borough Council have stalled that, delayed it. What are your views on that?
I'm not sure that they've stalled and delayed it. I think they've stopped it. And it's hard to see it now happening. I was disappointed. I think that we know that Merseyside is going for a very substantial devolution deal. We know that Greater Manchester is. They will both have a significant voice with government as a result of that, in terms of powers moving out of Westminster, Whitehall, in terms of money moving out of Westminster and Whitehall. Cheshire and Warrington would not have been as large as either of those, but it would still have been significant, and it would have given us a voice, and I was very much in favour of it happening. There was no loss of power by Warrington Council, because the only powers the mayor would have had would have been powers that were coming down from the government in London, And it would have been much better, in my view, that those powers were held locally. It would have helped transport, coordinating, all sorts of different things. And I'm disappointed that it hasn't gone through.
I mean, on top of that, the Northern Powerhouse was a big thing for Warrington and the North West.
Yes, that hasn't stopped. Well, that hasn't stopped. But devolution is part of it, though. And in a way, the government would look at it from the point of view, you can take a horse to water and can't make it drink. The government's accountable, but the councillors in Warrington that voted this down also need to be accountable. And if they've decided that there's powers that they don't want to have in Cheshire and Warrington, that they'd rather leave in Whitehall to be exercised by civil servants in Whitehall, they need to be accountable as well for that decision, because that is money, opportunity and power that we would have had in the town that we're not going to have now.
I mean, the decision was actually made behind closed doors within the Labour group who control the council. Do you think it should be actually brought out into the open and done in the council chamber? I would have preferred to have seen it on the because it's on the record. You have debates on the record and all that go with that, and it seems to me to be more democratic if it's on the record. That said, obviously Labour control the council, and the result would have been the same. But they would have been seen to be saying it publicly.
No, I'm in favour of transparency, and I'm in favour of discussions in the open, and it would have been better if that had happened. I don't suppose it would have changed the result. And to be clear, the councillors in Warrington are entitled to change the result. They've got a mandate from the people. They've got responsibility. All I'm saying is they've got accountability for what they've lost as well. And people that live in Warrington need to reflect on that. When they see powers going to Merseyside, going to Manchester, powers and money going to Merseyside and Manchester that we could have had in Warrington.
So you're absolutely certain now that deal's gone? It's
certainly gone this year. You can't say never, because the government intention is to get more devolution. But you're starting again, and that certainly is the case. We are going to start again. It won't happen this year, and we won't be in the Merseyside deal. We won't be in the Manchester deal, which is one of the things that some of the councillors have said they would have preferred. That will not happen.
So you see this as a major setback for the town?
Well, it's a setback. Yes, I think it was the wrong decision, and I think that the people that made it need to be accountable to the other citizens of the town for the decision that was made.
Right, David, final question. We both got a bit of stick after the last interview on Twitter from some of your friends from probably from the left of politics. Not quite sure which party they were representing, but they were upset that I didn't ask you a question about why you supported the government when they were proposing to do the benefit cuts which would impact on disabled people. Okay. So if you could give me a response to that now.
Yes, I suppose there's two levels of this. One, the government has to do its best to maintain a sound budget and all that go with that, and there were difficult decisions to make, and one of them were these cuts, which I'll come back to. The other thing I would say, though, is I have had a lot of comments from Labour Party members on it, and the difficulty is that every single change that we've made to the public finances around benefits, Labour have opposed. So they've opposed a benefits cap, they've opposed any attempt to keep benefits, and they aren't cuts actually, they're keeping them at a similar level. They oppose all of that, and as a result there is no credibility, because in the end there isn't a magic money tree. We tried that under Gordon Brown, and we know where it got us. Now, in terms of these specific cuts, I think the ones that are being referred to were the proposals that were for a change to the work-related group in terms of disabled people, and the change that was being talked about would have affected new claimants from 2017, so no existing claimants would have been impacted. It's not true to say that benefits paid to disabled people are being cut or are getting lower, because actually every year of this Parliament they've increased. But nevertheless, there was a decision to reduce them from 2017. In the end, that didn't go through. But I did support those, as did other colleagues, not because we want to cut things. It's much easier if you're an MP to say we'll spend money on this, that and the other. We all like being popular. But sometimes when you're in government, you have to make decisions that aren't that easy, and this was one of them. As I say, if the Labour Party even supported us on things like the cap that I mentioned, a cap of £25,000 per family, they would have a lot more credibility when they make points like some of the points they are making around things like this. The truth is, to govern is to choose.
I understand what you say when difficult decisions have to be made and unpopular decisions, but it does sort of rile people when these cuts are announced and being talked about, and then MPs are being seen to be given pay rises. Now, I know you personally said any pay rise you'll donate to charity, but it's again cutting on one side of the fence and giving more out on the other, which doesn't sit well with the people.
I agree completely with that. I mean, the MP's pay rise, in my opinion, was wrong. I, as you just said, didn't accept it, and I've given the money to charities in Warrington. And in a way, that's all I can do. In fairness, the people that gave the MPs pay rise were not the government, it was IPSA, and the government didn't really want it to happen either. But nevertheless, you're right, it doesn't look very good when difficult decisions are being made. All I can say is, for the bit of it that I got, I have given it to local charities, and I will do that for the rest of the time that I'm an MP.
Okay, David, thanks for your time.
All right.